Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt. I'm president of the Institute of Lutheran Theology, and what you're viewing today is a course, a lecture within the Christ School of Theology in a course entitled Faith, Reason, and Knowledge. This course introduces students to some of the philosophical tradition so that they have a better idea of how to read the theological works within the tradition of the West, because, of course, all these theologians presupposed knowledge of philosophy in moving forward with their work. Today we're going to talk about Aristotle, and I can't think of anyone more important to talk about for the subsequent theological tradition. So we have a group of lectures here that are actually just a little brief introduction to Aristotle, his life and works. So this is the first lecture, Aristotle's life, and there is a very famous statue of Aristotle. You'll see that he lived from 384 to 322 BC, born 15 years after Socrates' death. This was after the Peloponnesian Wars. He was born in Stagira, and he studied in Plato's academy at 17, so that would have been about 367 BC. 20 years later, he moved to Assos in Asia Minor, remained there 3 years, then spent the next 2 at Lesbos. Yes, there's an island by that name, so you can think about that, where he met his wife, Theseus. And he served as a tutor to young Alexander the Great, from 343 to 340 in Macedonia. So he's connected to Philip and Alexander. He established his own school, the Lyceum, in 335 in Athens, because, of course, he did not succeed Plato at the academy. He was at the academy, but his philosophical opinions were different than that of Plato, his teacher, and although in many respects he remains Platonic, there really is quite a difference in the work of Aristotle and the work of Plato, and we'll be talking about that as these lectures proceed. After Theseus died, he had a relationship with Hercules and had a son, Nicomachus. Nicomachus. What we have of Aristotle is 31 surviving treatises. We think that he wrote perhaps over 200 treatises. He wrote on a great variety of subjects. He wrote on logic, he wrote on metaphysics, philosophy of mind, ethics, political theory, aesthetics, and other things as well, like biology, meteorology, physics, and all kinds of things. What a mind he must have had. He left Athens in 323 because after Alexander's death, he feared an anti-Macedonian backlash. Of course, Macedonia, where Alexander the Great is from. He went to Chalcis, an island off the Attic coast, and died there in 322. Legend has it that he left and went to this island because he would not let Athens sin twice against philosophy. And of course, they sinned against philosophy in 399 when they put Socrates to death, and Aristotle did not want that to be repeated. So he says he doesn't want Athens to sin twice against philosophy, but of course he might not want it to die. That could have been part of that as well. Plato's dialogues, of course, are very well written. You can buy the dialogues in most bookstores. You can certainly get them online. They're more glorious in the Greek, I'm told, than they are in the English. But Aristotle's works are not glorious in either language. They are ponderous, laborious, and turgid. And if you actually read Aristotle, unless you're a philosopher and very excited about this stuff, your mind will wander. As generations of undergraduates, their minds have wandered trying to read Aristotle because it is so turgid. So if this is the case, why does Cicero say that if Plato's prose is silver, then Aristotle's is gold? Well, the answer here is we do not possess Aristotle's works that he wrote intended for public consumption. They might have been gold, but we don't have them. What we have are in-house documents. We have his lecture notes, his drafts, his records of investigations. I don't know about you, but if all they had is your lecture notes from classes, that might not make scintillating reading, perhaps. And this is probably true of Aristotle as well. The works of Aristotle are divided into the theoretical, the practical, and the productive. The sciences, we can talk about the theoretical sciences being metaphysics, which is that book beyond the physics, dealing with being qua being. Mathematics, yes, Aristotle knew some mathematics, as did most Greek philosophers. Certainly wasn't a mathematician of great learning, but he knew his way around. Physics and natural philosophy, we have those. Those are part of his sciences. Natural philosophy, called the first philosophy. His physics concentrates on conceptual problems, and it presents his fourfold theory of causality, which we'll be talking about later in this lecture. And, of course, his proofs for the unmoved mover. His natural philosophy includes biology, botany, astronomy, meteorology. Some think his psychology falls here as well. But certainly, he was an acute observer of things around him, and he has an exhaustive classification of botany and biological life and plant life. It's all quite amazing, really, that he was able to do these things. Under the practical sciences fall his politics and his ethics. His ethics, very important in the Western tradition. And under his productive sciences, Aristotle locates shipbuilding, agriculture, medicine, the arts, music, and dance. So we wouldn't immediately think in America to locate a college curriculum that would include shipbuilding and dance. But in this system, these things fall together. Logic is, for Aristotle, not strictly speaking a science, but it does provide the rules of thinking applicable to all the sciences, and these are included in his organon. And his organon is a work, a group of works that you'll see right here on this slide. The categories, which the students in this course are reading, concern the nature of predication, actually the terms of predication: substance, quality, quantity, relative, time, place, position, having, possession, affection, passion. The De Interpretatione, concerning interpretation, deals with the relationship between language and logic, right? So this deals with semantics, right? Language and logic. In the prior analytics, we have his deductive logic, the syllogismus, deduction for him, and his posterior analytics, which come after the prior analytics, deal with definition, demonstration, induction, and scientific demonstration. And so for Aristotle, we're going to see that good sciences have axioms. When you organize a theory in science, you would have axioms, and you would demonstrate conclusions, theorems, based upon this axiom set. But of course, you just don't go out and deduce reality. The axioms you get are the result of an investigation of nature, but it's a way of organizing truths about the world. Then we have the topics. This deals with general arguments. This deals with the way sentences go together with predicates and subjects, and deals with argument forms, instances of arguments, concerns dialectic. We'll talk about that later. and then his sophistical refutations, which concern fallacies in reasoning. And Aristotle identified a bunch of these. And of course, all of these things were commented on by the tradition. So a lot of these theologians, particularly in the Middle Ages, they will write commentaries on some of Aristotle's work, and then they'll be doing theology. So you got to understand when you're reading these guys how steeped in Aristotle they are. Now, when I say that, I mean from the time of Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century and afterwards, because Aristotle was not so-called rediscovered in the West until the 13th century. And of course, this presence of his thought was part of the medieval synthesis of the 13th century. The great towering intellectual achievement where we had a world that was rational, right? Now, prior to this, some of Aristotle's works were known, but the most of the works that were to become very important in the Western tradition were basically transmitted in the West through the Islamic philosophers, actually. And then they were translated into Latin. And then later on, of course, we get the translations from the Greek. Here in the Organon and everywhere else, Aristotle reminds us that people philosophize because they find their experience puzzling. So philosophy begins in wonderment, begins in a marvel, in a curiosity. There's something about experience that needs further explanation or clarification. And this is how philosophy proceeds. So I thank you very much. This is the end of my first little introductory lecture. We'll be right back and we'll be getting into something a bit more meaty. Thank you.